Okay, friends, today is about reasoning with factoring. It actually is totally okay if your factoring reasoning is a problem right now. I've tried to lay the foundation, but it's not easy to keep track of learning all these new skills, plus thinking all these things through at the same time. So here's a chart you can go to when you're doing your homework now to go, what am I looking for here now? Because if that's causing you a big problem, I totally get it. Because the way we teach it is a bit of a problem. We go, here's common factoring. Okay, go home and do common factoring. Here's easy trinomials. Okay, go home and do easy trinomials. Here's complex trinomials. Okay, do complex trinomials. Okay, here's factoring by grouping. Okay, go home and do that. And you never have to make a decision. You're like always doing what we're telling you to do. Now moving forward and getting ready for the test, you have to be able to go, okay, what type of question is this? Now I know. What type of factoring should I do? Here's my flow chart. And so this is called a flow chart. Be able to choose the correct factoring method. Here's the flow chart. Start. Is there a common factor? Oh boy, I hope I beat that to death at least. Have I? Yeah, I've been hammering away on look for that common factor first. And there's a little example there. The flowchart's not meant to reteach it exactly. It's just supposed to go, okay, what am I sort of looking for in a common factor? And a common factor is something that divides into everything. After doing that, this next step might change your whole view on factoring and go, wait a minute, now that I know the reasoning, I can handle just about every question. It says, are there 2 terms? Are there 3 terms? Or are there 4 terms? Could there be more terms than that? Yes, but not in grade 10 really, okay? It's basically going to be 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms. Those are going to be the decisions you have to make. Now, my page doesn't go nicely like yours, so you're going to have to follow down the page where I go to because I couldn't fit it all on one page nicely. If you look here, are there 2 terms? If there's 2 terms, you're looking for difference of squares. That was the last one we did, and for some people, the easiest factoring. You look and go, okay, what's the square root of that first term? I pointed little arrows at them, right? I looked and said, okay, what squares to give 9x squared? 3x is what squares to give 9x squared. What squares to give 16? 4 is what squares to give 16. The thinking's there in the little box, but maybe that's not the thinking you do. Maybe you just do that, 3x and 4, and then you immediately write your 2 brackets, 3x plus 4 and 3x minus 4. But I pause for questions. I'm not trying to rush this lesson. Do you want to talk about difference of squares? I hope that really helps. You're like, oh, if there's 2 terms, I'm not looking for add to multiply to. I'm not looking for decomposition, AC. I'm just looking for difference of squares. Okay. Now, next. If there's 3 terms, then you've got another decision to make. And you see why this is a problem for people, is first you had to look for a common factor. Then you had to count the terms, and then there's 2 things that could happen. It could be a simple trinomial, and simple trinomials, I hope for a lot of people, did become simple. When I was marking those quizzes just now, most people weren't even showing a whole lot of work. Some tried to show me a bunch of work. Great, I'm glad. I want to see that work. But it could be you're at the point where it's like, okay, so can't I just jump from here to here if I know my multiplication tables pretty well? Yes. If you're not at that stage, don't be at that stage. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't make you a better mathematician because you can jump right to that end piece. It's just that if you're starting to get to that stage because you've practiced enough of them, I understand. I'm with you, okay? And so there's some notes here, but I don't know if these notes are helpful. It says, oh, you're looking for 2 things that the product's 12 and the sum is 7. Oh, the numbers are 4 and 3. Again, this isn't trying to reteach that. It's just a little quick memory reminder. This is what you're trying to do simple trinomials, okay? Complex trinomials, different game. And again, I just put some notes here, but I think you should add a couple of things over here. One of these words is what you should add here. You should add the word decomposition, if that's who you are now. And I think if you've been a decomposition person, I'd stay there until the end of this test now. I'd just go, okay, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Might I change in the future? Maybe. Or you might write the word window. One of those 2 words. You're like, I still haven't decided. I like both. Well, maybe you could write both words there, I guess. But this is where decomposition, window, or the brain method, which many of you did not vote for. It was basically down to decomp and window. And there's a couple little notes here, but I don't know if these notes are going to help you. Yeah, it's just a little trigger. It's supposed to be a little trigger of what we're looking for here. You find the product AC, which is the 30. You find two things that multiply to 30. And actually, I think even there's a step missing here. Let me just fix that for you. This step here, 5x squared plus 10x plus 3x plus 6. And then you common factor the first set. And you common factor the second set. There's those steps there. But when I typed this up, I did a rush job on it because I really wasn't trying to re-explain decomp here. If you're still having trouble with decomp, you should go back to that video and go back to that practice. This is about when do I do decomp? Completely different lesson. Yes? Okay? But I'll fix those notes just in case you want those there on your flow chart. Incidentally, a prof of mine that I had in university said the very best learning comes from when you get a big chart like this is going home and building your own, writing it all out again. A lot of us, I don't know if it's laziness or just arrogance, we believe that, oh, writing it out again, what's that going to do? It's surprising what it does. Rewriting these things out really imprints on your brain, and then when you're in the test and trying to remember something, you remember yourself writing it out. Yeah, so I don't know. Sometimes we don't do a big favor by giving you one of these. Maybe we should make you write it all out. So I encourage you, before the test, go through and go, can I rebuild this chart myself? My own version of it. Not all the notes or anything like that, but can I rebuild some of it? Okay, so where were we? 2 terms, 3 terms, simple or complex, and then 4 terms, which was the factoring by grouping, which you surprised me. Virtually everybody did go in the factoring by grouping. Even people who had trouble with other parts of it, common factors and so on, zipped through the factoring by grouping. And that's a good sign for us because often this is the one that causes people the most trouble. So that was good. So when you see 4 terms, you're looking for a factoring by grouping. Now, is there other types of factoring? Are there special situations? Yes. This chart isn't meant to say, now every factoring question is covered. No, it's not meant to say that. But that will cover most of what you're going to see. So let's use the reasoning to look at A, B, C, D, E, F and try and decide what factoring strategy would we use to start. You can look through those, A, B, C, D, F. Take a second. You don't have to do A first. You can do whatever one you want first. Not do it, just decide. And then you'll tell us what you decided, and I'll write it down, and we'll agree or disagree on what you chose. The common factor. Which one do you think is the common factor? Oh, yeah, all of them we should look for a common factor first. But do I see a common factor in that first one? No. Yeah, there's no common factor in that first one. So as much as we'd like to common factor, it's the right answer. We'd like to common factor. It doesn't have one. What is the first one then? Aubrey? How do you know it's a difference of squares? 2 terms is like I'm highly suspicious. When I see 2 terms, I'm thinking difference of squares. To really bring it home, I got to look and say, are these things squared? Is 49 something squared? Yes. Is 9 something squared? Yes. And you might have to square root them if the numbers are big. So this one's a difference of squares. I'm going to try and write that very neatly on your page here. And we happen to do the first one first, but I don't think you have to think like that. You can reach down and poach these questions and grab whatever one you look at and go, oh, I know what that one is. I know which one I think is the easiest one, but maybe you don't think like me. What do you see next? Which one do you want to do next? Doesn't know. The second one. What do you see? What do you think? What kind of strategy are we going to use on that one? Does it have a common factor? Is there a number that divides into 6, 15, and 21? Yeah, and if those numbers don't come to you, then you're going to sit there and you're going to go 6 divided by 2. Yeah. 15 divided by 2? No. All right. 6 divided by 3? Yes. 15 divided by 3? Yes. 21 divided by 3? You're going to have to do that. So this one is going to start with a common factor. Now, I know some of the questions, after doing your first step, then you had to do something else. Well, we won't worry about that right now. We'll just go, what's the first move? How about this one? This is the one I thought was the easiest. When I look at them, that's what my brain says, is that I can spot these ones a mile away. Which one's this one? Simple trinomial. It's got 3 terms, and that x squared is just x squared. There isn't a, I almost said there isn't a coefficient. And that's not true, is there? Is there? What coefficient is it? 1, yeah. So when it's coefficient 1, you should be able to do that simply. I didn't say easily. I didn't say it's easy. I say it's simple. It's just got, okay, what multiplies to this and adds to this? Okay, D is the big one. These are the ones that might cause you some heartache. Does it have a common factor? No. Since it doesn't have a common factor and it's a trinomial, this is a complex trinomial. So we'll have to break out our decomp or our window, whatever it is you're doing. How about this one? Does it have a common factor? No. So that's another complex trinomial. I put 2 of those in here on purpose because especially after marking your quiz, I'm feeling pretty confident about common factor and simple trinomial as a group. Some of you have some little touch-up work to do. And then this one, oh boy, no common factor. It's not 3 terms. Can't be simple trinomial or a complex trinomial. What's the only thing that's left? Factor by grouping, which is supposed to be the hardest one, but it didn't seem to be the hardest one on that quiz we just wrote. Everybody just zipped through that, so factor by grouping. Grouping, what a good flag word that is. This list only has 1 factoring by grouping. I'm not saying there's only 1 in the test. There could be multiple of those. Yeah. So let's try each of those. We'll go through each one of them and make sure. Now on your sheet you got, okay, plus I could have just left it there and said, okay, we've made our decisions. You go and use the skills you have. 49 y squared minus 9. We decided it was a difference of squares. So what's squared to give 9? 3. That's supposed to be easy. But if you needed your calculator, let's say the number was 225, and you're like, I don't know what square. 225. What would square to give 225? He did the right thing. He's like, as soon as it's too big for my brain, bang, into my calculator, square root that thing and find it. But we didn't. I think 9, most people can do in their head. Well, this is not easy, though. 49y squared. What squares to give 49y squared? 7y. Because y has to be squared as well. So you got to take the square root of both pieces. And in the case of the exponent, you got to divide that exponent in half, okay? Well, that part might be a little tricky, but the next part most people like. They go, okay, so that means it's 7y plus 3 and 7y minus 3. And I'm not looking right now, but if you're frowning at me on that question, to really learn about difference of squares, just multiply that thing out. When you file that out, you'll go, oh, that's why that happens like that. Yeah. What do we decide this is a common factor? What divides into 6, 15, and 21? 3. And only a couple of you forgot to write the 3 out front. Only a couple people. They did the common factor, divided everything by 3, but then didn't write the 3 out front. You got to have the 3 out front as well. And then so when you divide each of these, that's a pretty easy common factoring questions. There's some nasty ones, some really nasty common factor ones in your Factormania. So make sure you get through the Factormania. There isn't an answer page for Factormania because it's an assignment, but you can come and check individual answers with me and talk about them and make sure you're on the right track. I'm not meaning to strand you with that thing. I want it to be good practice. All right. Simple trinomial. So all you're looking for is 2 numbers that multiply to negative 30 but add to negative 1. So you go over here and you go, okay, so 1, negative 30. This is the strategy you use when the numbers don't come to you really quickly. Can you be faster at it? Yes, some of you are clearly very fast at it because you're only writing 1 line. 5 and 6, she says. It is 5 and 6. Negative 6. And you're getting a great picture of her brain when she talks like that because it's like 5 and 6. She knows it's 5 and 6. And then she just goes, okay, so where does this negative go? Yeah, and that's the right thinking. And it feels like some of you want like a strategy that's like, bang, just gets the answer. I don't want to have to, Mr. Todd, isn't there something better than just thinking this out and reasoning it out? No, I don't have something that like 2 more years later in a grade 12 class, I'm going to go, here, now do it like this. No, it's always going to be like this. Whoa, that was fun. I was standing like 2 feet away when that happened. Okay, complex trinomial. I got enough room to do both ways. So both you decomp people and you window people. There's none of these on the test. So that's something you have to work on because you don't have a quiz to check, or none on the quiz. Over here, both methods ask you to find A times C. And the A is the coefficient of the first one, and the C is the coefficient of the last one. And so I get 36. Then you she's already a step ahead of me. -6 both times. And again, if you don't come up with them that quickly, that's okay. I don't want you to overjudge yourself, as long as you've got a system. In fact, I was speaking to 2 different people yesterday who, as soon as the numbers got large, had real trouble with these because they were zipping through all the easy ones, and they didn't have a strategy to handle large numbers. The strategy is just to go over here and list all the pairs that multiply to 36 until you find it. It feels like, really? This is all you got, Mr. Todd? Yes, it's all I got. I don't have something else in my bag of tricks. So you use that, and if you're not sure about these just yet, draw my arrows. -12 breaks into -6 and -6. Disorienting that it's the same thing. Then someone, in their own words, tell me what you do next. Yeah, common factor of the first pair, which is weird. And the second pair. And if you've done it right, you get the same bracket in each one. And this one is very strange looking. Look, it's 2x minus 3 both times. Now, I don't know if I should have marked it wrong on your test if you didn't write this as 2x minus 3 squared. I'm going to tell you by next chapter, we're going to, when they're squared like that, we're going to want them squared. Not like because Mr. Todd said so, but because for what we're doing, we're going to want to see that square. So start thinking about that. I won't take a mark off on the test, but I might start circling it and going, couldn't you write this as something squared? So we're just dipping our toe in the water of that right now. You have questions? Do I have 2 more to do? Yes, am I right? Or 1 more? 2 more? 2. Well, let's not wait around till tonight to find out you actually aren't very good at decomp or whatever yet. You try this one yourself, using decomp or window, whichever way you want. When I take it up, I'm going to take it up with window because I promised to do both ways for you window people. How long? Two minutes and 30 seconds for a decomp question. Should be enough if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, well, hey, weekend coming. I'll start showing steps so you can look, but I'm doing window people this time. Do I remember? Started it for you window people if you're like, I'm a window person, but I don't remember exactly how I window this thing. Times to the -60, but add to that 11 that's over there. So multiply to AC, but add to B if you want a catchy phrase there. He's picking up what I'm throwing down. I'm going to show all the pairs because it's a pretty big number. Don't look up until you've found the numbers. I have now found the numbers. You decomp people will write this slightly differently, and I'm happy for you. I love decomp too. One thing that'll happen is your multiplication tables, which maybe you were good at back in grade 6, and you weren't very practiced when I started this. Now from doing your homework and a little bit and trying these, it's got a little better, and so you might find, oh, it's going faster now than it was. Yeah, so. Yeah. Okay, someone in their own words for window people. Once you're this far, what do you do? Aubrey just gave me a hand signal. She went like this. Yeah? And you're doing what you did in decomp, but you're just factoring in a column here. You're just looking, it's very visual. It's nice for you guys who want a visualization of this. You look for the common factor in this column, which is 5x. You're looking for a common factor in this column. It's so easy, it's hard. Or it's so difficult, it's easy. I don't know. X is not common to both things in the column. 4 and 3 don't have a number in common. The -1. Take the -1 out in that situation. That's awkward and weird. I'm with you. Now, along the side, you got your choice. You can common factor the rows if you want. It works. Or you can just see what goes with this. What do you multiply 5x by to get 20x squared? That's 4x. And what do you multiply 5x by to get 15x? That's 3. And if you check all the boxes, it all should work. And it very visually shows what the factors are. The factors are 4x plus 3 and 5x minus 1. Okay, pro tip coming up here. I don't like that negative. If I had wrote these in the other boxes, if I had wrote -4 down there and positive 15 up there, if they're both negative, that doesn't work. But if one's positive, one's negative, you can, and decomp people, you can do that too. You can be like, ugh, I'll just write the positive one second, and that makes it easier to handle the negative. Right?
My answers are inverted. I have
5x minus 1?
I have 4x minus 3, and then 5x plus 1.
Okay, let me look.
I did decomposition.
You did decomp, 20x squared. Minus 15 plus 4 is -11, not positive 11.
Oh.
So you needed plus 15 minus 4.
Did it backwards.
Yeah, right.
I don't know the signs backwards.
So I don't know, what would you do as a teacher if somebody got those signs reversed? Say this was out of 4 marks. How many marks would you give to someone who just got those plus and the minus switched? It's either 3 or 3.5, depending on the teacher, I think. Because it's like, oh, you showed me all the steps. You showed me the AC. You wrote it all down. That's why we show our steps. It's like an insurance policy. Look, I know what I'm doing. I just made a little positive, negative mistake. Yeah? I think I'm a 3 person. I really need you to keep track of the negatives. I know a lot more about the future than you at this point. If we don't keep track of those negatives, there's going to be trouble everywhere. So we got to get good at watching for that. Okay. 4 terms. Factor by grouping. So you look what's common to the first 2. Good. And so what's left is x plus a. And what's common to the second 2? 2. But take the negative. Take whatever's in the front one. That's what's going to work. And if you've done it right, that bracket is common to both. Yes, it's fine. If that's what you see, for sure. And factor by grouping long term, it's sort of like that. Sometimes you have to go, if I'm going to do factor by grouping, this has got to go with this, you know. And so factor by grouping actually gets quite difficult as the grouping gets weird, right? So.
Let me do my bet. It is negative to right to right or
I'm doing the window. How do I know if this is negative or positive?
Whatever the first one is.
Oh,
If the first one's negative, take it.
Okay.
Yeah? So we call it the leading coefficient. If the leading coefficient is negative, if the first term you run into is negative, take the negative with you. Which part? No. 4 terms, so factor by grouping. So you look in the first 2 for a common factor in the first 2 and a common factor in the second 2.